So, welcome once again to Friends of Derry City Cemetery and our partners, Gavin, Patton Films. And any research done, Friends of Derry City Cemetery, any films made, Gavin, Patton Films. We're here because it's Ulster Scots Week, where we celebrate the heritage and history of the unique links that are here to the Ulster Scots community, the language and its heritage. And believe you me, there's nowhere where it's more succinct, where it's more visible, real, touching, is here where the Ulster Scots people, their language, their traditions, their enthusiasm for business and industry and that, and the arts is here. And let's go. And as they say here, look, there's a list of the surnames of the Ulster Scots. There's far too many to go through, but I'll give you a wee rundown. And we here have the Alexanders, the Ballantynes, the Buchanans, the Cunninghams, the Cuthbertsons, the Gilmores, the Glass, the Knoxes, the Johnstons, Hutchinsons, Ramsays, McNutts, Stevensons, Stewart, Young, Watts. And if you come down here, this is a who's who of Ulster Scots. If you want to follow me. The vast majority of people in this city and in the northwest of Ireland, mostly people in this city, would not realise that this here is a peace wall. And here, to this side, all along here and up here, is the Catholics of Derry and Catholic consecrated ground. And to this side of us is all the Protestant people and the Ulster Scots people and Protestant consecrated ground. So this is like a peace wall down here. And sadly, the Protestant and Catholic poor had to be buried apart as well. So over against that wall where the schools are, up along it, in a triangular motion, is where the poor people from the Ulster Scots tradition that probably never get mentioned because they weren't rich, they weren't famous, maybe had issues and they died in this lunatic asylum and that, and the Protestant is over there against that wall, a lot of people. So let's have a wee look at all these names from the Ulster Scots. So we're in the Protestant section now, which is just literally Ulster Scots. All these names that are Ulster Scots are here, carved in stone. There's people buried here, their families, their history, their culture, their heritage, and the language they brought with them. The McClearys, Love, Killock, Alderdice, Mac this, Mac that, Mac everything. And the first notable grave that made a huge contribution to society here in Derry City . So here we have the McKillops, and the McKillops are as Ulster Scots is what you get. And these 5 sisters, passionate about education for girls, when girls' education wasn't really high up on the radar. And the McKillops founded the Victoria High School, and they dedicated their lives to the education of girls, women. And they had to give up their own biological clock and not get married, or they had to fail to become school teachers. And they made a huge contribution, this Ulster Scots family, to education in the city. Remarkable. Their success rate in getting girls and ladies when it was opened up, and the Trinity College and places like Queen's was phenomenal. And I think Foyle College that we have today is part of a merger with one of these. So right to this very day, the McKillops, the Ulster Scots heritage, has made a huge contribution to education in the city. If you want an example of how the Ulster Scots people and their enthusiasm for industry and that made a contribution to the northwest of Ireland and the city then. Basil McCrae, born in the townland of Derry, County Donegal, Anno Domini 1830, died at Belfast, but it was his promotion and construction of the railways from Derry to Letterkenny, Burton Port and Carndona, and many of his other large engineering works in Great Britain and Ireland. He was also a trustee of Magee College, Londonderry, and took a lifelong interest in it, its foundation, and he bequeathed its entire fortune to a rich and endowed. So Magee was also, long time, was known as McCrae Magee College, which shows you the contribution the Ulster Scots have made to education, engineering, technology, industry, thrift, development. So here in this probably most visited row, everybody passing through sees it. We have Eric Craig from the First World War, killed in action August 1916, 21 years. Here is a remarkable story in that this family here is of Hamilton Mitchell. And Mitchell is one of the names here that says from the Ulster Scots tradition. And Hamilton Mitchell fought in the Crimean War over where Ukraine is right now. But Hamilton Mitchell, we are told, is a direct descendant of Mitchell, John Mitchell, who was the Young Irish rebel leader of the Young Irelanders. So there's Ulster Scots contributing, which isn't surprising because the Presbyterians get a hard time during the penal laws as well. So Hamilton Mitchell, connected to the Young Ireland movement, John Mitchell, and also here now another member of the Ulster Scots tradition who fought in the Boer War in South Africa. So over here, one of these wee wreck graves here lying down is another Ulster Scotsman that brought great architecture here, John Guy Ferguson, who designed the Guildhall and the Cathedral School. People think he would have a big fine monument, but it's just a wee small one, lopsided. We move over here now into the what was known as the Class A section, where the great and the good of society were buried, and it cost top dollar to be buried here in the old Victorian era. And we have Richard Bolito, who is was one of the dam busters in World War II, from out here, just the roads out here where he lived, but he's commemorated in here, one of the dam busters World War II, Richard Bolito. So, reflecting back to the Ulster Scots names, Robert Hamilton, John Wallace, Greenslade, Austins of the Diamond, we have Claude Walton, famous civil rights man. We have an old cavalry officer here and the Protestant section, and as you see, this man from the Dragoon Guards has brought his beautiful Celtic symbolism and crosses with him, and the Gaelic over from Scotland. Now here's one of the many reminders of where and hence these people came. So formerly of Edinburgh, capital of Scotland, died in Edinburgh, the Osbornes. I mean, it's a who's who, and we've got mentions here of Dumfries, and this man here was called Mackay, another Ulster Scots name. So, one of the most remarkable stories from the Ulster Scots tradition, and here in this cemetery, is a fascinating man called James McKnight, LLD, which means he was a lawyer. This man spoke several languages, including Latin, etc., and he would have spoke with a big Ulster Scots brogue, but he also spoke Gaelic, Irish, and Trevor Temples told me when he was on his deathbed, his housekeeper was reciting prayers as Gaelic to this man. And as you can see, he was the editor, a journalist, and the editor of the Londonderry Standard, which was the Presbyterian organ. And the Presbyterians didn't get life as well here as what you might think they did, because they were not the established church either, and they suffered under the penal laws and that. and a lot of them went on to emigrate, and they were having big issues, just like the Irish National Catholics, tenants' rights issue with absentee landlords, and this man was standing up against it. So James McKnight, one of the prominent names from our Ulster Scots, became one of a Gaelic speaker and a prominent activist for the tenants' rights that were being evicted and getting bad deals with security of tenure for their land, etc. So, Porter is another surname that figures prominently here on the who's who of Ulster family, Ulster Scots families. And we've got the Londonderry debate here because Joseph Porter, from the Protestant Ulster Scots tradition here, says he's a merchant from Derry. And his brothers and fathers around here are merchants from Londonderry. So, some people ask me, the Japanese say, is it the same place? I say, yes, Derry, Londonderry. So good they named it twice. Another name on the list of Ulster Scots is Lindsay. And here we have George Lindsay, who died on the 16th of March 1998 in our generation, and he was 103 years of age. And George Lindsay fought at the Battle of the Somme, another Ulster Scot. So sadly we don't have any paths and it's quite dangerous, but we have to go down to our most famous Ulster Scots grave of all. So we're here, and sadly we've no path, but the most famous grave of all from the Ulster Scots tradition is down here. And Knox family, Ulster Scots, and the lady Cecil Frances Alexander Knox, who wrote her great hymns up here, and she was married to the Bishop of St Colum's Cathedral, wrote her hymns up here behind the walls in Bishop Street, and composed all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, and also the most sung hymn at Christmas, Once in Royal David City. Also, there is a green hill far away without a city wall, which people suggest she may have composed up here, looking at a green hill far away without a city wall. But evidence suggests the green hill far away without a city wall was where our Saviour was crucified on the mountain outside Jerusalem or whatever. But we're claiming that, and this is another great Ulster Scots tradition, a musical tradition, just right up there in world fame along with Robbie Burns. So here we have Charles Love Crockett, and Charles Love Crockett says he was killed in action on April 1916. So Charles Love Crockett, Enniskillen Fusiliers, Ulster Scots tradition, killed April 1916. People think on the Western Front, World War I. No, it was killed in Dublin during the Easter Rebellion. So the only fatality we have in the city actually comes from the Protestant Ulster Scots tradition. Charles Love Crockett, killed by friendly fire during the Easter Rebellion. So this section of the cemetery is so rich and so steeped in the Ulster Scots tradition. It was these people in their industry and their thrift, and they brought their language and they brought words to us like wains, mingin, for dirty, all sorts of things in here. They've even were contributed to our culture of local sayings, and this is the Knox vault from Prehen, and then the German fusion of it, von Schieffelin Knox. So you have the Ulster Scots, the local Irish, and all fusion, and then we've got the great story of the Knox vault here of Half Hung McNutt, also Ulster Scots related. Down here we have a beautiful Irish round tower here, and that's the Miller grave, which were Ulster Scots and also were mayors of Derry on several occasions. And you see all these beautiful Celtic crosses where the Ulster Scots brought over their traditions and their language from Scotland to here and fused in. And down here we also have Basil McFarland, well known in the city. So here we have the graves, the plots of the Cook family. The Cook family and the McCorkles over here own some of the finest ships in the world, and they were responsible for taking a lot of the later Ulster Scots people from here to the New World in America. And some of the finest ships, Canadian built timber, the Cooks, the Gillilands, industrial stuff we hear, Scott from the Ulster Scots tradition, founded the shirt industry, but Tilly, from Tilly and Henderson in this grave, mechanised the shirt industry. Behind us we have Patrick Gilmore, another one of the Ulster Scot names. The huge obelisk here, which we're just getting cleaned up now. Patrick Gilmore was a real philanthropist, and he, Catholic community, all communities. He donated and spread his wealth out to help all the communities during typhus, cholera outbreaks, and at the time of the Great Hunger, famine and that. And actually, because he was a great philanthropist, on the side of his tomb is carved a beautiful carving of the parable of the Good Samaritan, just like he was, and it's fantastic. The next time you're here, have a wee look at it. So Patrick Gilmore's down here has been one of the most prominent Ulster Scots names, and Patrick Gilmore, great philanthropist, very generous to all the community, Catholics, Protestants, no matter whoever was in need. And symbolising the fact that he was a great philanthropist is that he has beautiful carving here. Most of these having this, sadly it's fallen apart, people are trying to fix it. But it's a parable of the Good Samaritan. You see the Good Samaritan dismounts his horse when everybody else is walking past to help somebody. So this is like an art gallery too, isn't it? A museum. Foster. But this one's the far better. This one's for your Philemon's the far better one here. But I don't know if it's too dark or what. But this gives you where I need here, look. Foster. Right? In Paisley, Scotland, Ulster Scots. And this is a boy that wrote, this is the great-grandparents of the boy Stephen Foster that wrote, "Oh, Susanna, the Kempton reaches," and I done "I dream of Jeannie with her light brown hair," and his big Hollywood movie, The Swanee River. And he's one of his most famous then is My Old Kentucky Home. Probably seen that in the Laurel and Hardy films, but this man is revered now. This man is mega in the United States of America, musical, and about 3 or 4 states have had songs as their, what would you call it, like national anthem type thing. And it's a huge link, musically, artistically, from the Ulster Scots people that came from Scotland to here, fused with the music here, and they reckon that his music then when he went to America was so good because it was a fusion of the Scottish music, the music and the lilt and that he got here in the Ireland, and then that was transported through family generations and became the great sound up in the Appalachian Mountains down south Kentucky. Now all that banjo music and fiddling and all is a fusion of all these cultures and directly related to here through the Fosters of Ballinacross, who tells you their people actually came from Paisley in Scotland. I mean, the links are there. So, to conclude, if you want to know and get under the skin and find out about Ulster heritage, Ulster Scots, all these names here, this is a who's who. This is the place, and especially then, because of the customs and tradition, money married money. So everybody in here was all intermarried. So they're all interconnected. And this here, if you're looking to find out an Ulster Scots week, about the Ulster Scots people, their history, traditions, and you want to meet them, come here. This is the place, Derry City Cemetery.